Okay, yeah, no problem. Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for June 18, 2024. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is approval of the agenda. Commissioners, board members, you have the draft agenda in front of you. Is there anything else for the agenda?
Just, on the approval of the minutes, can you separate June 4 and June 11?
Separate those?
Yeah.
Do those separately?
Separate, yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. I did also want, I wanted to note for the agenda that board member, board liaison from Mount Lake Terrace, Jesse Hoffman, is not available this evening. So he will be an excused absence without objection. Is there anything else for the agenda? If not, I'll move that we adopt the draft agenda. It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Teoflak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us then to the consent agenda, item number 4, with our claims vouchers totaling $2,231,648.04. I will move adoption of the consent agenda, those claims vouchers. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wittes. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the claims vouchers, the consent agenda and the claims vouchers. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. That brings us to item number 5, the meeting minutes. We're going to start with item number A, which is the June 4, 2024 regular meeting minutes. I will move the adoption of those June 4, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those June 4, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I wasn't in the meeting, so I'm not going to abstain.
You're going to abstain, okay. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, and any abstentions? Motion passes on a 6-0-1 vote. That moves us to item B under number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes for June 11, 2024 work session. I'll move the adoption of the June 11, 2024 work session meeting minutes. Is there a second on the motion? Seconded by Commissioner Teoflak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the June 11, 2024 work session meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to item number 6, which is the retirement recognition for Fire Chief Thad Hovis. Chief Hovis, I believe his last official day with South County Fire is coming up at the end of this month, Chief Eastman. And so we wanted to have some recognition for that from the board. We have a resolution, which I'll address in just a moment, but we also have a nice plaque. I'll just hand that down if you'd like to just take a look at it, acknowledging Chief Hovis's service with South County Fire, predecessor organizations, Fire District 1 and City of Mount Lake Terrace Fire Department, I believe. And so before we move on to the resolution, I'll pass it down. Would board members like to say anything in recognition of Chief Hovis? Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, Chief Hovis became chief during my first year here as a board member, and I was impressed with Chief Hovis when I met him, and he did a remarkable job guiding us through the COVID period, and we went through that without any mishaps and without having to fire anybody. And that was very unusual for any state agency at the time, any agency in this state. And amongst all the other things that he did an incredible job. We're going to miss him.
Other commissioner comments about Chief Hovis? Commissioner Furnoff.
You know, as a new person to South County Fire, just not even 2 years or coming up on 2 years now, I have to say that the welcoming I received from Chief Hovis and the guidance and the mentorship was extraordinary. It made my experience here at South County Fire worth staying what was an appointment and made me run again for this office for another 6 years. And I think that in itself speaks volumes, and I'll greatly miss his leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioner comments or commissioner statements? Commissioner Teoflag.
I also really enjoyed my time with Chief Hovis. He was always very professional, never lost his temper. So his personality I really enjoyed, and he's always positive. So yeah, I'm going to miss him as well.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Chan.
Well, I always claim that I discovered him. I think I told the story a million times. Some of you probably heard it 100 times. At that time, I was a chair, and then I got the union president give me a no confidence letter on the fire chief. So I went to look for him, and I went to the wrong place. It was in Station 22nd. And Hovis was on his bike, doing the bike thing. He was a vice president. He talked to me. He was disagreeing with the president, but when you listen to it, you didn't know that he was like, my God, I said, this guy is good. I think he should be really good. And he was, at that time, he was a captain. And then eventually, I think, I mean, every chief have a good thing and bad thing, but I think what he did is that he really transformed the, we probably, some of you know that after the one chief fire, we have interim chief, we have so many interim chief, and he was able to get home and really make a new culture about teamwork, about everything else. And so I really appreciate he changing the culture of the place. Thank you.
Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you. I just want to say how fortunate it was for me. I was able to see him go from firefighter all the way to fire chief. I wasn't here when he became fire chief, but it was kind of neat to see that happen and watch him grow. And it was just an amazing thing to see. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Board Liaison Swisher.
I'll try not to cry. Chief Hovis made a trip to the city of Briar to meet my brand new mayor right after he had been sworn in as fire chief himself in the middle of all of our lovely pandemic issues. And from that day on, he was an active fire chief. He made an effort to connect with the cities that you serve. I can say that based on my city, and I have 100%. I know that he did that with everybody else too. He did change the culture around here. And he also set you up with a row of other great people to follow in his footsteps. He will be missed, but luckily he convinced Chief Eastman that he should step up and move into that position. And I think he did a really wonderful job for this organization. And I hope he enjoys his retirement.
Any other commissioner comments? I wanted to acknowledge Chief Hovis. I worked with him over many years, first as a president of the union local, IFF union local. Then he was battalion chief. I didn't work with him. I don't recall working with him much in that capacity, but then more as a deputy chief, assistant chief, and chief. And he certainly had a passion for the fire service, starting first with the City of Mount Lake Terrace Fire Department, and then joining South County Fire, Fire District 1, and then becoming South County Fire. And Chief Hovis, I think the thing that stands out in my mind is maybe similar to what Commissioner Lawrence mentioned, is his work during coronavirus, which was just unprecedented in terms of an experience no other fire chief, no other fire chiefs over time have dealt with. Dealing with that was just unique and very difficult. Keeping everybody employed was amazing, and just the challenges month to month as that unfolded, the opportunity to get vaccinations for our employees, and I guess that time of uncertainty and what was going to happen. It took real leadership to bring us through that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention his leadership in bringing on board the cities of Mill Creek, Briar, and Mount Lake Terrace. A significant enlargement of the actual RFA through annexation, which was tremendous. And I didn't always agree with Chief Hovis, but I always knew his heart was in the right place, a real passion for South County Fire and the fire service, and the people that work here, which is the heart of the work that we do serving the community. So just want to acknowledge his long work over many years, but also thank his family for allowing him to be with us, spending time at all of these night meetings and all of the work that it takes to be chief, to be fire chief. It's a 24-hour a day, 365-day-a-year job, and it's hard and it's stressful. But a fire department or an RFA needs a good leader, a good CEO that can lead the organization into the future. And he steps into a long line of fire chiefs that have done good work for us. I appreciate all of his work over many years, and he will be missed, and his leadership will be missed here at South County Fire. I wanted to turn then to our resolution, which is Resolution 06182024-11. Resolution commending Thad Hovis, Fire Chief, for his service to South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority. I move the adoption of the resolution. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt that resolution. Is there any after we do the resolution, I'll read it after we adopt it, but is there any discussion on the motion to adopt the resolution? Any discussion? Commissioner Chan.
I think I kind of ran through as is well deserved, and then two things that I think still did not say. He never forgot his start with a volunteer, so he really supporting the volunteer, and also I work with him with Barthel on the annexation fight. He just spent more than time, whatever I know, on that effect. And that was a successful. That's due to him.
Any other discussion on the motion for the resolution? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. And then I'd like to read into the record the resolution 06182024-11. Whereas Fire Chief Thad Hovis has spent his entire 29-year fire service career faithfully and steadfastly serving the people of South Snohomish County. And whereas Thad Hovis started as a volunteer firefighter in the Edmonds Fire Department in 1995, was hired in 1996 by the Mount Lake Terrace Fire Department, transferred to Snohomish County Fire District 1 in 2005, and promoted up through the ranks of captain in 2011, battalion chief in 2017, deputy chief in 2018, acting assistant chief in 2019, assistant chief in 2020, and was promoted to fire chief of South County Fire in 2020. And whereas Chief Hovis took the helm in the midst of a global pandemic and was a leader in bringing together county fire service agencies in an unprecedented collaboration to provide unified response planning and procurement of crucial resources so firefighters could safely serve the public throughout the outbreak. And whereas Fire Chief Hovis was involved as a union leader in the establishment of the Regional Fire Authority in 2017, and during his tenure as chief played a key role in its growth through the successful annexations of the cities of Mill Creek, 2022, Briar, 2023, and Malik Terrace, 2023. And whereas Fire Chief Hovis also played a key role in securing sustainable funding for emergency services in the Regional Fire Authority through a benefit charge overwhelmingly approved by the voters in 2020. And whereas Fire Chief Hovis leaves a legacy and culture of supportiveness and excellence within personnel at all levels within the Regional Fire Authority. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the South County Fire Board of Commissioners commends Thad Hovis for his distinguished years of dedicated service, leadership of South County Fire employees, and adhering to the highest standards in meeting the public safety needs of the citizens of Snohomish County. We wish you well in retirement. For the board's information, Chief Eastman will we'll have that framed. I'm going to hand down the original of that for signatures. We're doing this old school with everybody here, so it can be in the frame, and then we will Chief Eastman will assist with the plaque, which you had an opportunity to see recognizing Chief Hovis, and that'll be the framed resolution for Chief Hovis, and to give that to him in the near future. Great, and thank you, Chief Eastman, for doing that. Great. All right, next we're going to move forward in the agenda then to item number 7, which is public comment. And we'll start first in the room here. Is there any request for public comment here in the meeting room? Any request for public comment here? Let me turn then to Ms. Blankenship, and on our online Zoom meeting, Ms. Blankenship, is there any request? I don't have the Zoom open here, so I can't tell. If you can tell me any requests for public comment there? No. I'll come back to the room. Any requests for public comment in the room? Last opportunity. Not seeing any requests for public comment either in the room or on Zoom. Thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 8, which is the Fire Chief's report. And good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny and the rest of the board, staff and the public. Assistant Chief Maxwell is going to give the chief's report tonight. And so I'll turn it over to Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Chief. We have kind of a long report tonight, so I will work to move expeditiously through it. We had some great comments about Chief Hovis there. He's our first retirement I'm going to talk about. You know, he was the right person at the right time. It was very stressful, the pandemic, and it required a lot of creativity and stretching and trust in the people around you. And he just had a way of holding high standards with kindness. He just did that in his own unique way. So, yeah, he was who we needed to get through the pandemic. Next slide, please. Battalion Chief Don White, he came to us many years ago from Edmonds. He will be greatly missed. I want to say, I think of him as like an elder statesman. I really think he was the wise elder battalion chief that really led our battalion chief cadre. He was a very solid leader, led with a lot of wisdom, but with a lot of heart. Next slide, please. Firefighter paramedic Jeff Pressmo, he came to us in the late 90s, right after Chief Eastman and I were hired. When the chips are down, phenomenal paramedic. If you were sick, he is the one you wanted at your house. So his services will be missed. Next slide, please. Battalion Chief Terry Fitzgerald. I think she might be our first female battalion chief, maybe our first chief in this organization. Yeah, I couldn't think of a better person for it. I remember when Terry got here, you always rode with another paramedic, and I go back to a day we had a baby not breathing, and it was a difficult intubation. She got in there and she got it quickly, and she was calm and cool, and I was like, wow, she's good. So, and she has been good all the way up through the ranks. So really excited. She is a great addition to our battalion chief team. Next slide, please. Captain Jeff Schwab, he is one of our paramedics. Came to us, I guess, during our fire district one time. He will be another great addition to our officer cadre. Next slide, please. And Life Johnson, he came to us through the Edmonds department. Another great guy that will be a great officer. It's just it's incredible to see the amount of promotions and the growth that we're going through these promotional lists is it's just an indicator of how big and how quickly we're evolving and how quickly we're retiring. So next slide, please. This was now a fatality fire. We went on, I believe it was Friday. We've had a few fire. It seems like we've had a kind of a rush fires in the Edmonds area lately. I can't express to the board how proud I am of how good our people do. The speed of the response. We talk about the weight of response. We had, 40 firefighters eventually, but they were there. We had a large amount of firefighters there very quickly to do 2 rescues and to do 2 resuscitations in such a short amount of time can only be done with a lot of people and a lot of speed and a lot of expertise. The first officers and firefighters arriving, it was you can kind of see on the right, it's a very close space, and you're getting in there to rescue 2 people. They moved so quickly. They said everyone was just looking at each other and giving each other nods of communication. That's how seamless the communication and the coordination went that was able to affect that rescue. We can be extremely proud of the competence of our people. And yeah, I was just floored just seeing that there. So next slide, please. Might see someone we recognize there. This is our new engine, engine 23, and that is with the firefighters and Commissioner Fernhoff there, pushing it in the ceremony where you used to, you couldn't really back up the wagons. So they used to push in the wagons, and that's where that history comes from. Next slide, please. And for our, I'll call it our firework prevention work, the signs will be available June 24th and June 28th from 10 to 7 p.m. This sounds funny saying while supplies last. They're going to be at the following stations, and the reason they're only at these stations is because last time there was different volume issues and they're trying to shuffle signs around. So these were our highest volume stations. It's the downtown Edmonds, the Mariner one right here, Killtop, which 22, Mill Creek, Mount Lake Terrace, and the Lingwood Station. Those are the ones where we had the most, so we're just going to target those ones this year. But they've been very popular. Next slide, please. Chief Eastman wanted to just want to make sure we touched base with the board on how things are going with light rail about once a month. So I'll just quickly go through that. Our training division's mainly the one leading it up with the training, but we also have the prevention division working on the necessary pre-plans at the transit centers, the guideways, and the power substations. That's all on track. The technical rescue team has completed multiple sessions working on the lifting procedures with the trains. The ops division is working closely with dispatch for the mapping details and response design. Our engine work group is working on informational sheets for our standpipes, our water connections there. And then the operations division just completed the draft guideline for how we're going to respond to rail incidents and creating reference manuals on that. So a lot of work, a lot of progress, all on track. When I spoke with the divisions, everyone feels confident where they're at. And the last topic, I will turn over to Chief Eastman for a Edmonds report. So thank you.
Thanks, Maxwell. So Edmonds. As you know, the city of Edmonds passed a resolution requesting annexation of the RFA. I subsequently had a conversation with the mayor the following Thursday. And based on the way we drafted the termination notice to the city of Edmonds, the way that they read it, and there were some council folks that did not, apparently don't remember getting the letter or reading the letter at the time we delivered it. Just so the board knows, it was actually published in the paper, both in the My Edmonds News and I think in the Herald on more than one occasion. With all that said, that when you read the termination notice, the way they interpret it gives them potentially the opportunity to renegotiate the ILA in lieu of annexation. And so what that has done is the last two conversations I've had with the mayor and the text messages I've had with the mayor, we have not really talked about the process of annexation or what happens to do the work to negotiate the pre-annexation agreement and the amended ILA plan. But it's running what are the other options if we do an interlocal agreement or renegotiate the interlocal agreement, what that says. In my conversation, I described to him, based on the other conversations we've had about this topic, that parity, if we do any kind of a contract, parity it has to be parity. I explained what that meant. The other part of that is if you don't annex in, you maintain some of the liabilities that you have, left liability, and ultimately an ILA is more expensive than if you just annexed in. And we had several more conversations about that. And after that, if the board recalls, and some of you may not, is the city of Briar had a very similar question. And at that point in time, we drafted a letter in response to those. At the time, Derek Daniels was the chair of the board, signed it and sent it to the mayor of Briar. I took that document and I sent it to Mayor Rosen as that came from the board, and basically said exactly the same thing I told him. Yesterday morning, he asked me if we could do something very similar to that, specific to the city of Edmonds. After that, I talked to Chair Kenny. After that conversation, I also talked to Commissioner Wittes as a result of the chair intergovernmental, and have since hence drafted a response that the mayor requested specific to Edmonds. Commissioner Kenny has a copy of what we drafted, and what I've talked to the mayor is I told the mayor I couldn't give him, he wanted it today and I couldn't do it today. But the draft, and my guess is Commissioner Kenny will make comments after this. I think the goal would be is we look at this response, and ultimately, my conversation with the mayor is if the board is good with this letter, that we, Commissioner Kenny can sign it. We can forward it to Mayor Rosen either tonight or first thing in the morning, so he has a copy of I think where the board sits on the topic of interlocal agreement, the dollars and cents affiliated with it. And then he talked about some of the pros and cons, and if you look at some of the bullet points in there, we address both pros and cons. We didn't highlight them straight out, but other than that, I will tell you the relationship with Mayor Rosen is awesome. We have very good and transparent and candid conversations. I think he's got as we know, the city's got their own challenges with some of the deficit issues they're dealing with. And we're doing everything we can to give him the information he needs to help navigate the city where the city needs to go. So with that, I'll pause and turn it back over to you, Commissioner Kenny.
Thank you, Chief. on that issue, yeah, that's very similar to the Breyer letter that was sent in response to the Breyer inquiry, basically on the same issue of, well, essentially looking for a better deal off of an ILA than annexation. My personal opinion is we can't bid against ourselves. We've spent years trying to get to this spot where annexation was on the table. And in my opinion, it's time to see it through to the end on annexation. And I guess a plan B, a backup is, I guess, if we want to serve them by contract and they pay the same rate as everybody in South County Fire and all of the other fees and, everything that goes along with it. I guess that's a possibility, but that's not really where I want to, myself personally, we've been chasing regionalization and having them be part of South County Fire for a very long time. That would be better for us, and it'd be better for the people of Edmonds to then have a voice here at the board and in their fire service in an electoral way as opposed to just a contract way. But that's just my opinion. But I do think we should send something to the mayor similar, either this letter or something similar to it. It's a fair question to say, hey, well, what about ILA? That's not unfair, but I do think the answer needs to be, well, it's not any cheaper. Let's put it that way. Other comments, other thoughts?
Yeah, questions.
Yes, Commissioner Chan.
Of course, I mean, will be, if somehow they fail, of course, I think that will be a default, right?
So I guess I'll say we talked about that and the context he's asking for is not, it's not an agreement to ensure the city of Edmonds has fire service if the annexation vote fails.
Right.
This is, you got annexation that they're talking about here, and you got an ILA they're talking about here, and they're not, right? Because I did have the conversation with them about, we also understand it takes the vote of the citizens of Edmonds to annex in, and part of the pre-annexation agreement will take into account, if we're not successful at the ballot, what do we do to ensure the city of Edmonds has fire service to get another bite at the apple or another time in front of the voters and those kind of things. I said, but that's a very different conversation about an agreement. If annexation is plan A and this is what if it doesn't happen versus an ILA in lieu of annexation, they're not the same thing. So does that answer your question?
No, actually, I've been always saying that there's no plan B. It's very difficult. If they want the citizen to agree on that, they themselves need to show strong agreement, just like Mill Creek, council member, Breyer, and also Monty Terrace. I think it's really dangerous to send the message to the citizen, to their residents, to say, well, if we can have an ILA to go through. But if that ILA, I would like to see a long term. Is not, because we ourselves need to be, as South County Fire, we cannot play what if with them, right? If they have to make all the council members need to show strong support. Otherwise, it will affecting the citizen, right? And I don't want to be 2 years later if the contract has to be long. I do not 1 to 2 years let them figure out how to build their own stations and all that stuff. We're not here because we need to prepare ourselves, right? If they're going to go the other way, we want to know 3 years, 5 years before that. We cannot just suddenly we do that. That's my thinking in here.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, great point there, Commissioner Chan, about the long term. This maybe should be added to that letter. If you do choose this, it's long term. And I would like to add that the costs may go up year by year as our costs go up. Long term, but with cost plus or whatever each year, not like contract, because $6 million a year for how many years that they've been getting a sweet deal, that's got to end. Never again.
Yeah, and I think if you actually look at the letter and based on how it was explained, their rates will be calculated based on what our residents pay annually.
Annually, right.
It's
And
done
that's-
annually.
if-
So,
yeah,
for
but-
example, one of the disadvantages of them being down a long-term agreement, and it's one of the things we highlight, is if our citizens, we renew our EMS levy and we choose to go back to 50 cents instead of the 34 cents it is today, the city of Edmonds residents without a vote are paying $1.50 or 50 cents now in their EMS levy, and it'll be calculated as such, right? So the intent of what we're trying to portray in the letter back to the city of Edmonds is parity means exactly that, parity. You pay and will pay exactly what the citizens, for all intents and purposes, it means you're paying the same as if you were to annex in the total dollar amount. It might be different because of where the
Right.
city collects their
Well,
money.
just as long as the
And it's
letter,
annually.
we'll get another, if they, this is not the final draft. It is?
Yeah, and we say that in there. If you read the letter, it says it in there that
Well, I'll have to
that
read
parity
it.
is
I
parity.
did read it, but like I'd have to pick that out somewhere. I'll read it closely. So it's in there that they'll understand that if they do this, but what about the long-term concept? Is that in there?
Not necessarily, because
Okay, well, that should be in there.
Just so you know, I did not, we didn't, staff didn't go there with that because I'm not so sure. That's a conversation the board needs to have about, are you willing to even entertain a long-term ILA, or are we doing something different? And so I didn't take the liberties to do things in that regard, if that makes.
Well, I'd take that liberty because I think that's a good idea. They need to know, but try to get behind an annexation or an ILA, but the ILA is going to be long-term, and a year to year, it could go up.
Yeah, I think they were really looking at what the cost was and if they could break it down and get a better deal than they do. And the reality is they pay parity, transport fees stay within the RFA, they don't get remitted back. So there's some things that are very clear about the cost.
In paragraph 3, pretty much answers what you're talking about, long-term. In this one, our third paragraph.
Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, thank you. Chief, you and I had a discussion yesterday on some topics, and I just wanted to see if I heard them correctly. And I'm really going over these one more time just to make sure that folks that are watching understand that the devil is in the details, if you will. And if I understand some of the cost savings, if you will, we would absorb the retirement, the left one, as part of this process. Is that correct? No.
If they become part of the RFA,
Right,
we
right.
historic, yeah. So if they annex into the RFA,
Okay.
we would absorb the liability specific, we have historically and so in that scenario, if they annex in, the left liability comes to the RFA. If they stay ILA,
Right.
I don't believe we
this is
absorb that.
annexation that I want to
Yes.
focus on.
Yep.
So get them out of the contract is my goal, and annexed into the RFA, which is the ultimate goal. I share that same sentiment with Commissioner Kenny. I think what citizens need to know, it's not just becoming part of an RFA, is that there are certain absorptions that the department will actually take from them as far as cost and these kinds of things. So that's the retirement piece. We also touched upon the facilities. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, so we've identified in the facility planning we've done thus far, that Station 20 is at a place where, I don't remember the exact year we identified it, but it's a tear down rebuild fire station. And so from a facility or fire station perspective, if they annex into the RFA, that is part of our capital facilities planning, and we would move forward. When that would happen is yet to be determined, but it has been identified as a existing fire station that needs to be torn down and replaced. So once again, if they annex into the RFA, we take the liability, both the good and the bad is how I term it. And at that point, we know that Station 20 needs to be torn down and rebuilt. They annex in, that becomes our challenge, and we will mitigate that challenge if they stay. And it doesn't become our challenge if they stay under a contract.
I think that's critical to hear, because the cost of fire stations are really expensive, and it's something that a city may not want to try to absorb in their daily activities and pulling it out of the general fund. And I think to me, that is a huge benefit especially when you're talking about the cost of materials these days. And also, we also talked about relieving them of the cost of the 911. Is that right? Can you elaborate on that?
So the way our current contracts are laid out is they maintain paying the fire side of their dispatch. In other words, that's not paid by the RFA right now. The city continues to pay for the fire dispatch component that's attributed to the city of Edmonds. If they annex it to the RFA, that's part of the cost of doing business, and we would then pay that as part of our normal duties.
Okay. And just a couple more things too. The change for citizens by becoming part of the RFA, correct me if I'm wrong, currently they pay on property tax value. And by becoming part of the RFA, they would then be able to take advantage of the fire benefit charge. Is that correct?
So yeah, so as an RFA, we have the privilege of doing the benefit charge, and our voters have allowed us to do it. Cities don't have that same option.
And can you describe the benefit charge and how that could possibly either maintain or, in some cases, might even reduce the cost of citizen ownership?
So one of the benefits of the benefit charge is it doesn't look at the value of the property. It looks at the size of the property and then the use of the property. And so it tends to be it's a more fair way, or at least a more fair way to look at that. So a 2,000 square foot home is a 2,000 square foot home, and the benefit charge, whether it's $1 million home and a $400,000 home, the benefit charge is the same. And so in that case, when we initially did the benefit charge in the RFA, the way it was set up, and 95% of those that owned residential properties paid equal to or less than what they were paying under the traditional way. And so it was, and what it does is allows us to put a little bit larger burden of the benefit charge onto multifamily and commercial, which tend to have higher fire risk and use more fire resources to mitigate emergencies at those sites. So we're able to move some of that burden of the benefit charge off of the residential properties and onto commercial and multifamily as a result of they use more resources, and they tend to, when they have fires at those type of occupancies, our crews tend to stay there longer.
And citizens pay directly to the RFA versus the city, right? Eliminating another layer of bureaucracy.
Yes.
Okay. So just to recap, and the reason why I'm going over this is that anybody joining us on this recording is now got hopefully everything in one snapshot. We've talked about it at length. We're all very familiar with it, but my purpose of doing this is to educate the voter and re-emphasize the urgency, if we're going to go to ballot for this, that it is a time-sensitive matter. Representation is also included in that. Becoming part of the RFA, you get to be here and joining us fine folks. We'll have to get a bigger, whatever we call this, dais. But I just want to reemphasize those people that are watching. This is not just becoming part of the RFA. And just to say that there are a lot of benefits that go with this, that if you were under contract, the contract will cost you the same, but you won't get representation. You won't get new fire stations. You won't get a lot of the things that we just talked about. Thank you, Chief.
Any other, Commissioner Rowland?
So trying to understand this paragraph here where we're referencing this RCW. I wish we had legal counsel online tonight, but we don't. Could you explain kind of this paragraph and your understanding of it, especially in context with kind of the current contracts that we already have? I mean, we already know that they're paying less for the service. Is this a new RCW? Is it just new case law that makes it so that we have to follow it?
So I don't know where the case law is at with it. I know the RCW, and it's more about the case law affiliated with the RCW. And there's not a lot of case law with it. And this, we got this information from Richard, I think after we were having the conversations with both Breyer and Montlake Terrace. So my guess, and so I don't want to speak on how recent it is or those things. But the way I understand it is that the case law affiliated with this RCW basically says we have to, we can't necessarily provide services for less for an entity, governmental entity, than we're actually paying to provide the service for the rest of the folks. Now, there's always, I was just gonna say, there's always wiggle room in those conversations, but specifically when you look at, in the case we're talking about now, where Edmond's equivalent rate is 71 cents per thousand and our citizens are paying equivalent rate of $1.24. And we pulled that from a memo we got from Rich, and to identify that there's more things at play with regards to getting to parity. And there's some statute and some case law that follows that, and that's the statute and case law that it addresses that issue.
Okay.
I think it's important that we add that, we have it, and it's.
So you're saying it's possible that between the time that we did these agreements and now case law has, you know, changed the understanding of this so that now we go, okay, yeah, back then case law wasn't around it, nobody had tested it, and it was okay, but now it's not.
Well, I think it's, I don't think it's that at all. I think when we first did the agreements, we didn't have the disparity we have today.
Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, I think if you go back in time and look at how we originally set the contracts up, we didn't have the same disparity we have now. I think that disparity has happened over time for lots and lots of reasons. And so I wouldn't characterize it exactly like that, Commissioner Rowland.
Okay.
I think as we've added services and the contract cities were set to pay based on how the stations were staffed, it didn't necessarily encompass enhancements that weren't directly firefighters in fire stations. That kind of got a little bit away.
So over time we drifted away and into this area of we're providing a service that's now.
I think that's fair as the contracts got further down the road, the disparity became the disparity became very significant, where when we first started these, that was not the case.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Teoflat.
I think the letter makes sense, and I'm in support of it.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I know if my recollection before, like Mill Creek, we have the saying that if did not fail, if the thing voter did not get enough, they would try again, right? I don't like this. Is there any way, do we have to send out today, or can we send it on next meeting?
What I would ask that the ask that I got from the mayor was he wanted it this morning. I said I couldn't do it this morning. The fastest I could get it to him is either at the close of business or tomorrow morning. I would say waiting till the 1st of July is too late.
Because this letter does not really spell a lot of things.
I guess what I'll say, Commissioner Chan, is he left a voicemail about the very specific things he wanted addressed. And I think based on what Mayor Rosen was needing from us on the topic, I had Commissioner Kenny listen to the voicemail too. I think we've answered the questions that Mayor Rosen wanted answered and what he wants us to write specifically for him. So I think, because there's a lot of things we could write for them. I think what we're trying to get for Mayor Rosen is he wanted to know cost and what the flexibility was. And I've had the conversation with him. So the things we've talked about tonight, I've already had a conversation with him. And he asked if we could put something in writing like we did for Mayor Kay, and that he knows it'd be signed by the board and go. So I guess I would say, I think we're addressing what the mayor asked me to address in what we've presented so far. We can go a lot of places with it, but that's not, the mayor wants something very specific for him to continue his conversation with the council on the ILA topic specifically. And I think based on my conversation with him and his voicemail, this does address the points he needed addressed. And if they need more, we'll have several more. I mean, if they continue down the path of the ILA, we'll have more conversations with them. What I'm hoping happens is the ILA conversation gets run to ground, and then we end up now talking about the pre-annexation agreements and the stuff to go down the path for ballot. So I don't know if that answers your question, Commissioner
Yeah,
Chan, but
you said the transport fee would not be remitted to them. That's it. Right now we do.
we do now, but if we move forward with a restated ILA that changes the cost, remember, we're treating them if they're our residents. So right now they get those transport fees remitted. Our residents pay their general levy,
Right.
their benefit charge, and their EMS levy. We take the EMS transport fees and goes in the general fund to cover the rest of the cost. Edmonds is not going to get those remitted back to them anymore. We're going to retain those because we do that in the RFA. So they're going to be treated the same way as the residents in the RFA get treated. If we gave them their transport fees back, it's just they're getting a deal and getting a discount by getting those fees back. So in this case, we're saying the transport fees aren't going to be remitted under a restated ILA.
So by this letter, we will be constrained to similar terms if we do really come out to a IRA in there. Are we going to be restricted on all these terms?
No, because I think if we go down, if we end up down that path, we'll negotiate the terms of the ILA, right? And things, I mean, we can have a position here, and in the current as the conversation goes on ILA, things can change, right? But specific to what Mayor Rosen asked for is if we do an ILA, what's my bargaining power? And I said, not a lot. And the reality is, here's the financial implications if you do it. You're going to pay parity, and the remittance of transport fees stops because we don't do that in the RFA, and those monies are ours. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think I really suggest that our intergovernmental committee really have their whatever safety committee and kind of go through the whole process. Something I don't like is that either we get married or don't get married. I don't want to write something that if we don't get married, we do this. I don't want them to projecting that kind of image in there. At the same time, which our other city, they're not going to.
Yeah, but Commissioner Chan, I don't think that's what this is saying.
Right, but I think if we create that kind see, sometimes the understanding is a bit different. I think I'm watching some of the things. I'm not sure that they really get that. I think we have to emphasizing either get married or not married, and we need to know where ahead. And also the contract itself, they cannot, this is my own opinion, not the whole board, but they cannot say, well, I'm going to give you 2 years notice, right? That it is very difficult for us.
Yeah, I think they need this information to run what the termination note said.
Right.
Our letter said that the door is open to have and renegotiate the ILA. This is what the base terms, which is money. And I think what it does is it stops the conversation of ILA and brings it back to annexation. That's what I think happens. And I think the mayor's doing his due diligence. I think the city asked the question. If you read the termination notice, there is that doors open. And I think what we're saying is you can go down the door, it's going to cost you more, or annex into the RFA. And I think, Commissioner Chan, if we get down a path where they want to do something totally different than annexation isn't on the table, we have a whole lot of conversations to be had about where we go, what do we want to do, what should the term be, or are we not going to do it? Because we have the choice not to do it too, right? I think there's a lot of conversations that the board has, and realize we have an annexation request. I mean, the city of Edmonds has requested annexation of the RFA, and they haven't pulled the resolution. We have it. And so I think what the mayor's asking is he's getting questions from council folks, some of the public, and he wants to run these to ground. And I think the information we gave in this letter gives him what he asked for him to continue the conversation with his legislative body to get to a place where they can be, they're running out of some runway too on this too. So I think if, regardless of where this goes, we have more conversations to have with them. If we go down, when we start having a conversation about annexation, and if they want to have another conversation about ILAs, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and we can get into more detail if they choose to. I just don't think that's where the mayor's at with his request for this. He had some very specific things for him to go and have conversations with the council about, and I think we've given him what he's asked for. I think he knows all the things we're talking about because I've talked to him multiple times. Multiple people on the council know what we're talking about because we had the privilege of talking to them in August. I don't think any of this is going to be earth-shattering new news.
Right, but the whole process will be different from Mill Creek, from Briar, from Monarch Terrace. I just don't want to. I think the more the discussion and hesitation, I'm just concerned about the voter themselves, without good leadership from them. I'm reluctant to agree to this, but I think our intergovernmental committee can really go with the specific committee and really talk about all the process, giving more explanations and all that stuff. That's my thought.
Okay. Liaison Swisher and then Commissioner Rowland, I believe. Liaison Swisher.
Okay. Having been on that opposite side of the table and gone through all of this, it took over a year to get my council fully on board. Less is more. This letter says exactly what it needs to say right now. You can't control their leadership. I understand your concern for the voters in that area, but we can't control their leadership and what they do. Less is more. Don't bombard them with so much information because that's part of what happened with some of mine is they got information that was conflicting from everything I had been telling them during that year. It was not helpful. It set me back. I had to go back and hash it out with them again and again. From all intents and purposes, from what I'm hearing, they have a mayor who is doing his due diligence, getting all the questions answered. We need to be careful about how much interference we give in that process. They've got to come to that decision themselves. No amount of anybody from here talking to them is going to make them. I will say I have offered because there was a very passionate plea to people done in my council chambers one evening, and it was from me. And I have offered, if needed, I'm more than happy to go and speak to them because they are, they need to make a decision and get on with the process. Because if they don't, they're cutting themselves short on time in case they do have to go back to their voters. Because I know from looking at our numbers, and I'm looking at the number they have, and I'm like, holy cow, that's a huge number. I'm sure that for them, that number is much too large to take out of their general fund. And they will come around, give them time. I believe wholeheartedly. But if I can be of assistance at some point, I'm more than happy to go give them the passionate talking to that my council got, because sometimes that's what it takes. So have faith. This is good. Less is more.
Commissioner Rowland.
Yeah, I don't think this is anything different than we've been saying for the past 2 years, either with the annexations of Montlake Terrace and Briar or when it comes to Edmonds. We've been very consistent with the fact that there are 2 paths forward where we continue to provide service for these 2 cities. Number 1 is annexation. Number 2 is parity, period. This does seem to get that message across, so I agree with sending it now. I think if I hear your recounting correctly, Chief, the mayor was trying to get this earlier today. That would make sense because this is the third Tuesday of the month. So City Council of Edmonds is meeting same time we are right now. Unlike us, they don't meet the second Tuesday, they meet the fourth Tuesday. So they're gonna have another meeting after this meeting before we get to meet again. And if we wait till our next meeting to do anything about this, they're going to be meeting simultaneously with us, and they won't meet the week after that. They'll meet another 2 weeks after that. So at that point, we're looking at, if we don't do something tonight, it won't be a month until they hear anything from us. This is no different than what we've been talking about before. I don't think it really warrants us spending time in a committee to talk about things that we've already agreed with, previously. And yes, it sets out there that it's no less than what the RFA owners are. I just have one question. The 124 that's calculated here as the rate for what the RFA pays, does that, I understand that they don't take into, they don't have the benefit charge on there. Does this effectively, I guess, whatever we're proposing here, make sure that they're paying what they would pay with?
I'm able to calculate the benefit charge for the city of Edmonds if they were in today.
Okay.
So we took the counties, our general levy, our EMS levy based on what was in the county assessor's report, and I added the 1.5 million and change in benefit charge based on the data I have. So that is as accurate number as I can give them, and there's no fluff. It calculates the benefit charge. I can do that.
And then one final question, and that is, oh shoot, I had it and I just lost it. It's important. Is there anybody else that has a question that can come back to me? Otherwise, I'll just give me a second. Go ahead.
Commissioner Wittes.
First off, Commissioner Rowland, I agree with you 100%. And right now, what you're going through, you're going to go through it a lot more as you get older, like the rest of us. Happens a lot. I just want to kind of go back to what you brought up earlier about parity. When those original contracts were done, the fire department was different. The fire service was different. We've evolved a lot since then than it was. And so what we based it on was just people costs and station costs. There was no looking forward to new stations, new locations. There wasn't the pandemic. There wasn't the homelessness. There wasn't the overdoses. All those things that have happened. We've really evolved and changed. And that can't be calculated in that formula we had. It was never looked at. So just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
I did think of it now. Yeah. Over the, let's just say the course of the contract so far, there's been additional work that has to be done over what we would provide if they were annexed in, doing reports for them, going through this whole process as, hundreds of man hours, maybe thousands of man hours into it. I would want to make sure that if we're going to make sure that things are being, accounted for properly, they're paying the same rate, but there is a cost associated with this being a contract and the additional duties that wouldn't be in place if it was. I don't know if you want to add it to this, and I'm not suggesting we amend this at all, but, kind of looking forward, if they decide to go this route, I think there probably should be some sort of accounting for the administrative costs associated with the maintenance and, the legal fees and all the stuff that go along with contracts.
Okay, I'll move that we authorize the chair to sign the letter to Mayor Rosen and send it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rowland. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the chair to sign the letter and send it to Mayor Rosen. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Commissioner Kenny, that's the end of the fire chief's report.
Excellent. Well, it was a longer one this time. Are there any questions from the commissioners for the chief on the chief's report? Any questions for the chief?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Eastman. All right, next up on the agenda, we have item number 9, which is the union report. And I believe we have IFF Local 1828 Vice President Matt Armstrong with us this evening. Good evening, Vice President Armstrong.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, staff. I don't have a lot for you today. I'm going to say congratulations to the retirees and the promotions, the individuals that were recently promoted, as well as the future promotions that will be coming shortly. I'd like to say thank you to you guys for you guys' work and what you're doing at your level. And also thanks to the crews who have been on these recent fires and performing at the level that they do. It is truly an honor to be a part of this department. That's all I have. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Vice President Armstrong. Any questions from the board members for Vice President Armstrong? Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving forward then in the agenda to unfinished business, item 10A, which is fireworks, fireworks ban, education and planning for discussion. And there's included an ILA with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. I believe we have Assistant Chief Anderson to address that this evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a continuation from last meeting. No changes to the ILA that you would have seen last time. If you look on page 54, you'll see the ILA. We haven't put in any exact dates that will run with the Sheriff's Office, but since 4th of July falls on a Thursday, I'm thinking Thursday, Friday. That would probably be sufficient. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have any on the ILA.
Questions for Chief Anderson on the ILA with Snohomish County Sheriff's Office? And are we ready for action on that?
We are.
I would move the adoption of the ILA, which is entitled Intergovernmental Services Agreement between South County Fire and Snohomish County for additional law enforcement services, starting at page 54 of this evening's packet. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt that ILA. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Commissioner Kenny, thank you very much. And if we could get your signature before the end of the night so we can get it to them and get working on getting law enforcement, that'd be fantastic for staff.
That sounds good. I will just need an original. Okay, was Chief Anderson or Chief Eastman? Is there anything else on fireworks? This will be our. Is it? Oh no, we have one more meeting before the.
Oh yeah, we do on the 1st.
Yes, yeah,
so
we do.
I don't believe there is. I think Sean gave you the signs, and the work they're doing and the education stuff they're doing, and so nothing at this time, and hopefully we'll give you a quick here's the plan on the 1st of July, and I guess I will add on that if any of the commissioners want to be in the 4th of July parade in Edmonds, please make sure we know, and I'm not sure how Leslie asked for that to be done, so we can make sure we get you assigned to a rig or set up appropriately. We'll have a good showing in the parade.
It's always a good time at the Edmonds 4th of July parade. Very good. Okay, that takes us forward in the agenda then to item 10B, which is talking about phase 3 of the capital facilities plan. And this is going to be with Chief Eastman, and we have with us this evening from TCA, Brian Harris. Good evening, Mr. Harris.
So before Brian starts, so if you go to page 59 in your packet, we start with the agenda bill. The information there is the same information we went over last week. I did not get any questions from anybody from the board ahead of time. And so Brian's here. He's got a few things he wants to talk about but it'll be brief. He doesn't have anything to present. And then make sure that the board has any questions. You can talk to the smart guy in the room doing the work on our behalf. And staff would look for approval for us to move to phase 3. and start that phase of Station 22. So with that, I'll turn over to Brian, and thanks for being here tonight, Brian.
Great. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, staff. I'd just like to say over the last few months, what we've done is spend quite a bit of time validating the new site. You're looking at wetlands, geotech, all those various things, and then essentially baselining the facility based on those changes since the initial capital facilities plan. That included, some additional sleeping rooms, additional room for apparatus, which had kind of a cumulative effect on the facility. Additionally, there's other things that have influenced the project. New Washington State Energy Code. There's some little higher escalation that was anticipated. And moving forward, what we see is check-in points along the way to make sure budgets are in alignment. We feel that this is a conservative but well thought out estimate based on all the research and information that's been brought into the project during the conceptual design phase, and just making sure that everyone is informed along the way. Staff has been extremely helpful in terms of defining needs, testing and validating. We'll be going on additional facility tours, regional stations to kind of kick tires, and that's really where I'm at, and really just open for any questions that they may have this evening.
Questions from the board for Mr. Harris on phase 3 of Station 22? Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, actually, I talked to Chris Bothwell about the cash flow of it. When the payment would make, do you have some kind of payment to the contractor, that type of thing?
The actual construction of the project won't occur for about 11 months from now. I have to go through the permitting process and so on. And in the interim, what we can do is build essentially I say month to month cash flow projection. The bulk of the monies will be at that point in time of bid.
Yeah, because I think there's some other capital facility plan. Our chairs here, and we need to figure out when we need to go to the bond and raising the bond money. Second question I have, you did just 5% contingency. Is that good enough? Because inflations and all that stuff, I don't know how the contract, right? Hopefully the contractor will take care of the inflation part of it, or how does that work?
So currently the way the estimate's structured, there are contingencies in the estimate for those things that aren't known. So as we move through each phase of the project, that contingency gets reduced on the estimating side. Then there's a 5% kind of change order contingency, and then additionally, there's a 5% what we could almost refer to as a management reserve for those. Oh no, the economy goes crazy. What we have seen is a leveling out of inflation. Things are settling down economically, but we did lower it from that 10% to 5%, and that's pretty consistent with other cities and departments currently.
But it's possible more than $17 million at the end of the day.
I would anticipate that the 17 million is on track with what you should expect, and I don't believe that amount will be expended. I think there is reserve in those monies.
Okay, then one more is it?
Yep.
I still remember the nightmare of Station 18. We have water problem, we have all that stuff, we have people come to here to protest. Are there any situation in that, some kind of the foundations, whatever that can be, that's something we don't know yet, and we become a big problem?
Yeah. So in that conceptual design effort that's occurred over the last few months, we have gone in, we've done geotech work, we understand what that soil is, We have wetland bufferings. We understand what the implication of the wetland is. You may have seen that there's stormwater management monies in that as a result of the wetland. Yeah, we have signalization as part of the splashers and things. So we believe we've captured that in the work that's been done. There's also some additional monies in there for the final demolition of the existing structure that's out there as well.
So there's no creek right next to it or anything?
There is no creek next to it. There is a wetland.
It is?
And that is accounted for.
Okay, so, okay, because,
Yeah.
well, you remember the Station 18?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay, I don't know how much.
yeah. There may be bears near the site, but
This is Commissioner Wood's fault. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Harris from the board? Any other phase 3 questions? Commissioner Lawrence.
I'll think of something to ask you because you came here, you've been sitting listening to all the other stuff go on. So you I should think of something to ask you so you could talk a little longer, make it worth coming here.
yeah. It was a great conversation to listen to, I must say.
So we've talked about this before, but I forgot. How's it work out once construction starts? Who's in charge? Making sure we don't have that kind of mistake with the truckers of the soil there or whatever it was, Station 18.
Yeah, so as part of the process, there's monies in there for special inspections, construction management, within the department as well as TCA throughout the duration of the project. There are third-party inspectors, there's commissioning, all of those things. Some of it is code mandated, some of it is just best practice. So that's incorporated into the contingencies or soft costs, call it soft costs.
Okay, I'll simplify that question. Who do we blame if something goes wrong in construction?
It
during
depends.
construction? Huh?
It all depends on what goes wrong. You can't expect that there will be some change orders. There's always unknown conditions at surface. And I guess as a team, our role is to manage those throughout the design process and throughout the construction process together to make sure we've done the best job we can throughout that process.
Any other questions for Mr. Harris from the board members? Any other questions? So Chief, I think we're ready for a motion then to move forward on this. I would move that that the board move forward. The South County Fire move forward with Station 22 Phase 3 project development and soft costs. Chief, does that get the job done? Yep. That's the motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lawrence. It's been moved and seconded to move forward with Station 22 Phase 3. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
On behalf
All
of
right.
staff.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure we'll see you again here sometime in the future.
I will be back.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome to have another cookie.
All right, that takes us forward in the agenda then to item 10C, which is the contract for headquarters basement HVAC repairs. I guess that would be Chief Eastman.
So if you go to page 83 of your packet. Make sure this is a two-part. We need the approval. Well, let me back up. We talked about this at the work session. This is for the 9 HVAC AC units downstairs to get them up to speed. As you remember, we got B occupancy down there, so we can move some staff down there that's appropriate to be down there, and we desperately need the space. And so what you have before you is the Morgan Mechanical was the lowest and most responsible bidder. So we're asking you to approve Morgan Mechanical to do the work. and the contract for doing those repairs. And then the second piece of that is there's a budget amendment associated with that. And if you remember, we talked last week, there was dollars put in the capital budget, but didn't get assigned a project. That's where the dollars will come from. And the budget amendment is just authorizing the expense for this project to come out of that fund. I can take any other questions. I know CFO Bothwell is also here. And so there's two parts to this. One is to approve the contract for HVAC AC repair, and the second would be to approve the budget amendment resolution.
Questions from the board members? Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, so I still remember when Commissioner Witters went to Washington DC asking for money. We have a plan, suppose classroom and all that stuff. Is that still the same or really completely different?
So we're not there yet, right? So this doesn't actually remodel the
Right, right.
basement.
No, but my question related to that is that isn't that because you need to know where things are, actually where the outlet is and all that stuff? Don't you need to be that kind of plan out before the HVAC?
No, because there's HVAC AC units down there today.
Right.
And we need those. So I
The
mean,
duct will be the same or because it
no,
was different?
If we do something very, very different downstairs, Commissioner Chan, obviously that's going to require movement of things at
Right.
the end of the day. But I don't see that happening in the near future. And we are in a spot where for the dollars to get that space up and running, we can use it today, and we're in need of the space. And really, with the stuff we do down there, we should have, appropriate HVAC and AC down there to maintain appropriate temperature control. There is, if we do that and we do a major remodel that changes walls and things down there, yes, you're going to move those HVAC units around. And yes, you're going to have to redo some of the plumbing or the vents and all those other pieces, but we won't know what that actually is until we get to that place in time.
But by legally, you need to do that to people down there to use anything right now.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think we need to make sure it's appropriately heated and cooled if we're going to put staff down there to work.
So I would suggest eventually, I think we should really start looking at how do we use this place and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you go look at the facilities plan, we've given some thought to that in the facilities plan to come up with a dollar amount, right? And as we go through and the subcommittee of the board meets, I'm sure that will be a topic of conversation because we want to make sure what we have vision of doing from a capital perspective, we're right and know a good idea. So when we project what the dollars and cost are, we're accurate so we can do what we say we're going to do. So there's going to be a lot of work done in that in the next 18 months as we do the work for the bigger conversation about the capital facilities plan and what does that look like and the funding options and all that. That conversation, we'll be starting here in the not too distant future and we'll go for the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, maybe I rephrase my question. So there won't be duplication or thing that wasted. Suddenly we have this plan, then the whole thing completely different. So.
I mean, depends on what we do.
Right.
There's going to be changes if we remodel the basement and do something significantly different and things will get moved. I don't think we need what we need today to function. I don't think, I know what you're saying. And I think the risk of doing wholesale, we got to move everything is minimal. We may have to make some slight changes. And that's just a part of making the basement how we want it to be.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, I was just wanted to comment basically on the same lines. And thank you, Commissioner Chan, for touching on that. I just wondered how close we are coming to a finished space like this, downstairs, usability, and that kind of thing. So I think he answered it. You answered it. So thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board members on this topic? If not, I think we're ready for a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Morgan Mechanical for $75,387 plus tax to repair the HVAC circumstances downstairs here at headquarters.
I'm second then.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Then we have to take up the resolution that amends the capital fund budget for 2024. That's resolution 06182024-12 at page 85 and 86 of the packet. I move the adoption of resolution 06182024-12, which amends the capital fund budget to accommodate the Morgan Mechanical contract. It's been moved, and is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to amend the capital fund budget. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you on behalf of staff.
Okay, that was item 10C. I think before we go to 10D, we're hitting the 8:30 break hour. My suggestion is that we take a 10-minute break or so, about 10 minutes to 8:40. And then we'll come back and start with item 10D, the 2025 budget calendar. So without objection, we'll be in about a 11-minute recess. Thank you. Regular board meeting for June 18, 2024, back from our recess and on to our next item on the agenda, which is item 10D, the 2025 budget development calendar for discussion and approval with Mr. Bothwell. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. So tonight I'm just back with follow-up from the budget development calendar conversation that we had last week. Last week, we got some feedback to take a look at moving the presentation of the Chief's preliminary budget from October 1st to September 17th. And so we spent some time looking at what that would be like. And I have a little bit of feedback there and also an alternate proposal. So moving the presentation of the Chief's preliminary budget from the 1st of October to the 17th of September not only converts the 17th of September to away from a staff board interaction before the Chief's preliminary budget, but it also compromises what we can do with the September 10th meeting because we need to be underway with the publishing of the Chief's preliminary budget before that meeting. So we wouldn't be able to have any real substantive conversations about the Chief's preliminary budget. And so we've come up with an alternate proposal. But we also acknowledge that the board had requested that we look and see if we could identify more opportunities, or the goal of that was to add more opportunities for board budget deliberations. So the alternate proposal is to add an optional budget workshop on Friday, October 17th or Saturday, October 18th, and then add an optional special budget meeting on October 29th, which is a fifth Tuesday. The advantage of this proposal is that it adds the additional opportunities for board budget deliberations. So that was sort of the goal. And then it also creates an opportunity for staff to prepare responses and analysis to anything that comes out of the workshop. So if there's things that you all want answers to or you'd like modeled after the workshop, it would give us an extra opportunity to bring those items back to you. And there would be a long enough period between those two meetings for us to be able to do some work on those items. And the third advantage is that it maintains the opportunities for staff to interact with the board on budget topics prior to finalizing the Chief's preliminary budget. We have 3 scheduled sort of open opportunities for staff to interact with you all prior to publishing the Chief's or prior to making final budget decisions for the Chief's preliminary budget, and then putting that together for a complete and balanced budget, and then publishing it. And those are really important opportunities for us because then when we hand the Chief's preliminary budget over to you all, it really is responsive to the things that you all would like to see in there and gives you a really good starting point for your budget deliberations. So that's the alternate proposal. And I'm happy to take any questions. We are looking for action tonight on this item if possible, but the policy just says we have to bring the conversation to you by a certain date. It doesn't say we have to adopt it. So If it takes longer, that's okay.
Comments, questions from the board members for Mr. Bothwell or about the budget calendar in general? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all the hard work and the thought that you're putting into this and to the staff and, bringing this to our attention because I think oftentimes it goes a little overlooked, but this does take a lot of attention to detail. So thank you, sir.
Other questions, comments? I would just comment that I think if we are going to consider those two staff suggested options of a half-day workshop on the 18th or the 19th or a special budget meeting on was it the 4th or 5th Tuesday of October 29, the special meeting on that 4th or 5th Tuesday sounds better than a half day or a full day budget workshop on the 18th or the 19th. But I guess we could keep our powder dry on that and just kind of see how it goes and maybe none of those will be necessary, kind of depending on how we find things in October. Any other questions or comments on this? Because I think we're ready for a motion. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the 2025 budget development calendar as presented tonight. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been to adopt the 2025 budget calendar. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, I just like the idea that half-day work session because this budget is very serious. And I think a lot of people are watching too in our city. So we need to do as much of due diligence ourselves because they will affect other cities and everything.
And Commissioner Chan, this motion tonight doesn't either endorse or foreclose that possibility.
Right.
That remains a possibility. We'll see.
The whole thing, I mean, the note that, so we have that being consideration.
Fair enough.
Highlight that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion to approve the budget calendar? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bothwell. That takes us forward in the agenda to item 10E, the fire marshal and prevention agreement for discussion and approval. This is the agreement with City of Mount Lake Terrace. And will this be Chief Anderson or Chief Eastman?
I'll start.
Chief Eastman.
If you go, it's page 90 in your packets, the agenda bill and the ILAs and subsequent pages after that. I guess as we continue the conversation on this, I guess I want the board to know the city of Linwood is eager because the changes for our other cities will probably happen relatively quickly as a result of them knowing what we're doing. And so I want the board to know that by virtue of if the board chooses to take action and approve the ILA and move down this path, that our three other cities that are in the RFA, ILA updates will happen quickly. And staff would like the board as we do that the goal would be as those become effective July 1. If the legislative process takes a bit longer, so be it. And that makes it clean half year. There's a lot of reasons why that works. Better for staff and I think better for the cities, specifically Mill Creek and the city of Linwood. But I guess I want the board to know that though we're bringing you the ILA for the city of Mount Lake Terrace, it does have an effect on our other cities that we have ILAs with, and then it will impact Briars, although Briar's a smaller entity in that and does not have a lot of fire marshal challenges like our other cities when it comes to growth. So I want to make sure the board knows that that's the domino effect of if the board take action tonight, what that does. And staff's prepared to meet those challenges with the cities and the cities have been, for the most part, up to date on the conversations we've been having, and they're not it won't be the first time they hear the conversation because they've been watching and know what's going on as a result of, like I said, with the city of Linwood, they've been talking about going a different path and having us do it for a while too. So I don't have anything more from staff's perspective right now. I think it's for the board to continue the conversation. Myself, Chief Anderson are here to answer questions that the board has or any additional questions you have as you continue the conversation about the ILA and where we should go. So with that, Chair, I'll give it back to you for questions that the board has of us, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Sounds good. And Chief, you're anticipating action tonight?
I would like to have action tonight if it's the will of the board. I think we've been, Mill Creek or Montlake Terrace still needs to run it through the rest of their legislative process. But I think with everything that's going on and what's happening to get this one done and work on the other ones, and with what's going on with Edmonds and the benefit charge and everything else we have, knowing that we have this and get these done, and there's still work that's going to need to be done after this happens, right? Because now we need to look at the fire marshal's office and there's certain onus that's now on us. We talked about the org chart during the spring workshop. We'll need to do work on that and have some conversation with labor about maybe some reorg, not necessarily people, not necessarily adding people, but reorging it to make it, with the investigative side of the house and the fire code side of the house based on the new code. So there's some work staff needs to continue to do on that to bring back to give you the rest of what I think we said we were going to bring you with this topic was, we had a really great conversation about the org chart during the workshop. And the fire marshal was the one that was out there a little bit that we need to continue to work on as a result of what we're doing with these ILAs. So to get this moving so we can finish up the rest of the ILA stuff and for the staff can go and work on the org chart and there's potentially going to be some budget impacts as a result of this, which we know. So.
Very good. Questions or comments from the board about the issue? Commissioner Teofleck.
So I'll be voting in favor of the interlocal agreement. I think staff has done their due diligence and weighed the pros and cons and are giving us the best option. So I'm in favor of it.
Other questions, comment? Commissioner Rowland.
Can you explain to me how this ILA jives with the RCW that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, so we had that conversation and with Richard Davis, legal counsel, and there is some differences with this versus a service agreement with the city of Edmonds or we're in a service agreement because one of the things that we want to ensure we have is a seat at the table, right? And so there's and as you go, and if you look at how these are done across the rest of the state, we're driving and we're going down how it's done most of other places. And so as long as we take fees as payment, and there is a certain cost that we're encumbering to ensure that we are the people making those decisions, i.e. the fire code work is really what we're talking about here. And so as a result, and I can't tell you the legalese, Commissioner Rowland, about it. I just know as we work through this with Richard on the ILA, because we don't have the statutory authority and we want to be in and have a seat at the table, that the way we propose this, he says, meets the standard and is compliant in that regard. So I can't give you any more detail than that because I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Davis, but I know we had that conversation, and for us, part of the fee recovery we're not getting is the price of admission for us to be able to do that work in our RFA, specifically in our cities. So
I guess I wish he was here tonight to answer that question a little bit more thoroughly, because the RCW seems pretty clear to me. It says that all services rendered by or property transferred from one department, public improvement, undertaking, institution, or public service industry to another shall be paid for at its true and full value by the department receiving the same, and no department, public improvement, undertaking, blah, 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 shall benefit in any financial matter, whatever, by an appropriation or fund made for the support of another. So the language of the law says that if we're going to be doing this, they have to pay true and full value. It should be paid at a true and full value. Is there a charge for having a seat at the table that's enumerated that then balances out to the cost of these?
So Rich Davis had commented to me that when it came to this exchange, so first off, these are RFA cities. They're not like Edmonds. They're not under a contract for service. Okay, they're actually citizens of the RFA that we both equally serve. Two, our last ILAs also had a monetary fee for investigation services, which under research that belongs to us. So that's also a decrease in that parity cost that you would look at in a monetary form. And then three, Rich Davis had brought out that in the other ILAs around the Puget Sound area that have the same type of modeling, it didn't have to be equal monetary exchange or monetary amount saying, you owe me $100 for $100 worth of service. We can exchange, okay, $50 of fees go to you, $50 of rented office space go to you, we pay for that, and whatever other benefits they can throw in. It didn't have to be a monetary number equal for equal when it came to this. Now, if we were talking Edmonds and they're under current contract, I do have to have a little bit more parity with money in exchange.
But this service that we're providing, the code enforcement side of it specifically, under RCW, it's 3522-280 subsection 23. That's the section where it talks about cities having the responsibility for doing code enforcement. So this is something that is, again, I brought this out at the last meeting. I didn't have references at the time. This is something that they would pay for out of pocket. It has a market value.
So when you talk
a dollar amount on, correct?
When you speak about code enforcement, that's very important because we don't do enforcement. We provide code official work. The city does the enforcement.
I'm sorry, I can actually quote this. It's not necessarily code enforcement. It's the actual law that talks about going through and making sure you can set the codes, the building requirements, the construction things, which is what they do. And they have the responsibility of going through and making sure those are adhered to and trued up. So again, I go back to, this is the city's responsibility, which we did agree on last week if we weren't in this at all. It's not the fire department's responsibility. Yes, if the city has its own fire department, essentially it's the same, but it's specific to the cities. So we are providing a service that is not under our standard operating procedures, the actual duties and powers of a regional fire authority by going beyond just the fire prevention.
I would argue one case. Under a city municipality where you have a city fire department, it does fall underneath the fire department by the IFC.
Correct.
So if that's a municipal, if that's a municipality and we're looked at as a municipality as well, I will tell you that what happened was when the language was adopted in 5226 for RFAs, prevention was overlooked because as a municipality with a governing board, we should have had the same rights as prevention as a city. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So that's an overlooked factor that we're going to go back and we're going to fix in legislation, and we've got the sponsors in the background, in the backing to do it. So this within a year or two, this could be even a moot point. We may have that full jurisdiction within our whole authority.
But within a year or two, we're going to be spending approximately $3 million, assuming this goes through in 2 years.
To have a seat at the table and to make sure that we are providing the right service that will affect the RFA for the next 100 years.
But I totally understand the argument of having the seat at the table. I've said before, I think it's important. But by the law, if we're going to provide this service, like we have been doing with the other cities, we're charging them full and fair market value for the services that we're rendering.
The
Now-
law's gray though. In that, according to our legal, the law's gray.
But we're using that law to go to the city of Edmonds and say, we're required to charge you parity.
Their citizens are not voted in the RFA. It's a difference in contract.
But it's also a difference in scope of work. This is why, again, I think that really we need to make sure that this is legal to go through and provide something essentially for free that we don't have the authority to provide on its own.
Yeah.
Because it is an interlocal agreement to provide services, and underneath the RCWs that we've, talked about tonight.
Correct, but I also went through legal on this very
I
incident.
get
And we
that,
are,
but
and we
right
debated
now we
it.
can only take your word for it. We can't talk to them. We can't ask more questions to legal. And this is a 2.5, or I'm sorry, a $1.5 million expenditure. It's essentially, once we take on everything. And if we take on everything and then it's not legal enough for us to do so, then we have to go, any one of the constituents could probably sue us and say, look at the people that live in unincorporated Snohomish County. They're already paying for their fire marshal service through their taxes. When we go and do this, essentially, the unincorporated area of Snohomish County is 60% of our assessed value. So they're taking 60% of this bill, essentially, the burden of it. That's $900,000 being added on to people that aren't getting any value from the service. It's not a service that we're required to do for the cities. The cities should be paying for this like they currently are.
I understand where you're coming from, and I've thought about this a lot. In the last year, this is probably the number one thing that's been on my plate and on my mind. And I can promise you that in strategizing for the future, there is no way to get to the point where we service our citizens in the county area, which you're correct, unless I have an ILA with the cities. If I lose the cities, I won't have a foothold to go and help the county.
At least for 2 years, if we get this legislation through, correct, then it would revert back to us.
We have different
Hopefully.
avenues if that doesn't work. We have different options of going to the county and partnering and incurring their personnel and starting that process of providing services. It's all about sitting down at the table with your partners, no matter what you do, no matter what legislation says, and working that out and coming to a better economy of scale.
I get that, but our job here is to make policy that's in line with the legislation that's out there. And that's why when this RCW was introduced, it kind of confused me because we're using it in one context and then trying to read it another way in another context, both that benefit us. But there has to be a consistent reading of this. There is case law, apparently new case law maybe, that has spelled this out, but we don't have any of that information at our disposal right now. So, given that fact, given that we're resting this letter up to Edmonds on this RCW that, pretty much tells them, we'd love to give you a deal, but we can't. I'm uncomfortable with going through and then immediately at the same meeting passing something that gives something for free to somebody else that isn't our responsibility to provide. It's elective. I can almost guarantee you that if the city of Edmonds, those that are trying to get this good deal, start latching on to this RCW and going, well, you're quoting it here, but then with the cities that we're already in, you're giving them free stuff.
Well, all I can say is with that is that when I went down this road, there was language in the 5226 RCW that referenced us as showing that through being a municipality of our own, that we had the legal grounds to have all of this. And I argued that point with legal. And then they taught me something a little bit about law that I didn't consider. And that was, it's not always black and white. There was this gray area of past practice, this gray area of current contracts that are held out there. And that was pretty eye-opening for me. And I learned a lot from our legal on it. And that's where I'm pretty satisfied that we worked hard and did our due diligence. Chief will tell you, we went down that road and we tried to look for everything through the IFC, through that RCW, and tried to match up. And if you read it, you would say, that's ours. 100%, it's ours and our
I
border.
have read the RCWs in regards to all of this.
Yeah, and it
So-
doesn't, don't you see where it says that we actually have a legal obligation for fire prevention underneath there, underneath the fire
Not-
chief
not
of the
for
fire
code.
authority?
Not for code enforcement. sir.
Well, that's not correct. If you read 5226, it'll lead you down that road, that path, until you talk to legal and they're like, well, except for this section over here that never got revised.
Well,
right?
Again, I think that we are kind of bordering on speaking with a forked tongue when it comes to this RCW and our negotiation with Edmonds. I want to be sensitive to that. I would really prefer that we at least get a report from legal counsel on this particular issue because it's so pivotal in our Edmonds before we move forward with doing something that's completely opposite of what we're doing with Edmonds.
I can respect that.
We have Liaison Swisher next and then Commissioner Lawrence. Liaison Swisher.
I'm going to ask some questions. So I'm glad your mic's still on because, again, I'm going to want you to interrupt me and answer my question. Who goes to the buildings that we fight the fires in? Is that the city staff or is that RFA staff?
RFA.
Who is responsible for making sure that our buildings meet the fire code properly and take care of all of the issues? I'm pretty sure I'm privy to an issue right now going on that I'm going to guess they aren't, where charging stations in buildings are concerned. I mean, it's true. They don't know, do they? But I know. This isn't just a seat at the table. This is our job as the RFA. Because if we aren't the ones reviewing these plans and looking at the issues, then somebody out there who doesn't have a dog in the fight, it's our firefighters that are the dog in the fight. And I'm sorry, but to leave it to chance for some other Yahoo from somewhere to review the plans, to do the inspections, to do the investigations on things that belong to the RFA, because all of us are part of the RFA now, except for Edmonds. Edmonds is not annexed in. They are on a contract. Their contract sets forth everything. The rest of us are part of the RFA. Therefore, any work related to fire belongs to the RFA. It doesn't belong to the cities because we do not have the expertise and we don't have the people and we don't have the dog in the fight because it's not our people responding to fires. It's the RFA responding to fires. They need to be the people making these decisions. And, and then you've got crazy things like the issue with the EV chargers going on. And when that comes around and rears its ugly head, I don't know, it makes my head want to explode. I'm going to guess I'm going to see 7 of them go off up there too. But this is the RFA's work. That's why they're taking it on. That's what the RCW says, is that it is our work and that we are responsible for it. We're not giving anything away. We're doing something that was ours to begin with. That as soon as the RFA was enacted, it should have become the RFA's responsibility at that point. And it should be for the part of unincorporated county that we service as well. And eventually we will get there, but it's going to take time. This is the first step. If we keep dragging this out, I mean, an example I will give you, because, you're talking about that you're worried about the money. When we were all on contract and you had union negotiations and retro pay came due, I know that other cities had not set money aside like I had done every year for my city. And to walk in and go, hi, here's this big, huge bill. We need all this money from you now. Those cities couldn't do that. And while our voters may have voted themselves into the RFA, we are still partners with those cities. And if you walk in and you slap them with a huge bill, they're going to go find some Yahoo from somewhere else that's going to do the work for cheaper that isn't their work to begin with. And you're going to put our people at risk. That's what it comes down to. Our people deserve to have people from this organization looking at that work and controlling that work and having a say in it, and it not be left up to the city to just go, oh, well, you know, Joe Blow from down the street, he did a fine job. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. That doesn't work. It's our work. It truly is our work.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Chief Anderson, you said that legal signed off on this.
Correct.
I trust you, that you're telling us the truth. Amazing. But I trust you.
Thank you.
Other commissioner thoughts, questions? Commissioner Fernahoff, and then Commissioner Wittes. Commissioner Fernahoff.
Thank you, sir. Chief Anderson, if I understood in the last meeting that we had,
on the record, and we were discussing the generally the issue of the interlocal agreement for fire marshal services with the city of Mount Lake Terrace, and we were with Commissioner Fernhoff for comments.
hello, welcome back. Chief Anderson, in our last meeting, you had outlined and emphasized the timeliness for this particular action. In other words, oh boy. Okay, the monitors are back. In summary, if we don't take action, as Liaison Swisher pointed out, we might get some Yahoo or somebody else that would take over this duty or responsibility. Essentially, if we jump on board right now, we have our 24-month window that even though it costs us some money, we have control and a say in a way to protect our crews, to define how our communities are developed over time. An analogy I came up with is it's equivalent to making sure that if we were the city department and the road crews, we're building our bridges adequate enough to support the weight of our apparatus versus letting somebody else do it. We go to cross a bridge and we drop that apparatus into the ravine because of failure of planning, failure of code development, and these kinds of things.
I actually have an example of that.
Please do.
Woodway has a bridge that crosses over if you take 3rd Street up. When Edmonds purchased a ladder in the late 90s, which was one of the assets that came over to the county, that ladder sat about 77,000 pounds, not too unordinary for a ladder truck, and it was not rated to go across that bridge. We would have to take dogwood around the ravine to get to the other side of Woodway, because the bridge couldn't handle that weight.
Couldn't handle the weight. So really what we're getting at is this is a timely action that even though it costs us money, ensures that we are doing our due diligence to protect our people who are the ones, as Paula kindly pointed out, that have the dog in the fight. And in doing so, we will not have to regress possibly as much as 5, who knows, maybe even 10 years to get those authorities back if we don't pass a legislation that would assure that. So I'm in favor of this just from those points of view. I think we owe it to the people that work in this department. We owe it to our community. And I thank you for your due diligence here.
Thank you. I just want to add to that, Mount Lake Terrace had office space already set up for a private contractor. They were ready to go. And I know of the private contractors, we'll just leave those names out, that were already contract in hand and ready to go in case they needed it. And I'll tell you that our people do a much better job and they understand our area and they understand our people's needs.
Commissioner
Thank you,
Wittes?
sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Farnow. Commissioner Wittes, I'm sorry, did you or did you not?
Yes.
Oh, Commissioner Wittes, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate, I started to at the last meeting, how important this thing is to me. 37 years in this business, and it's a whole that we don't have to protect our firefighters. L&I says we have to have a safe place to work environment. How can we if we don't check the buildings out? Because that's where we go. I've been in a lot of buildings that don't meet code. There were county buildings that are their own buildings, Air Force stuff at Payne Field. Nothing was up to code. You go into a building with a sprinkler system, and then you find out that they took the riser out and everything else, and they're not even plumbed because it was hooked to a tank of water instead of a fire hydrant. When you're in a building when it's on fire and the sprinklers don't activate when you think they're going to, it gets a little hairy and scary. I think it's that important that regardless of the amount of money, almost to a point, it's that big of a deal. We put paramedics out in the street. We took EMTs, made them paramedics. This is the same kind of thing that we're looking at doing with this. And it's huge. And so therefore I'm in support of this and I would like to get it finalized. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence, then Commissioner Chan.
Yes, and in addition to what's been said about for our guys, our people, the public is also benefits from better codes and better code enforcement. So the individual homes and businesses, they'll be better off. In long term, it's going to save everybody a lot of money and a lot of potential injuries on part of public and our workers.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Rowland, look at that situations. But to me, it's risk and reward, right? So what are the risks if we, you said eventually we'll have to pay, we'll have to do the whole thing free? Is that what's the risk in there and what's the chances of that will happen?
As far as if we do this for Mountlake Terrace, the assumption is that we'll do it for all the cities and it'll pretty much be on our budget to do it going here on out. I'm not saying that there's necessarily risk. I think there's a stipulated risk of that all of a sudden that the cities will run to these cheap contractors if we don't do it for free.
Is that will happen?
Well, I could tell you it was definitely going to happen in Mountlake Terrace, 100%.
So I'll add, when we brought this conversation up in December, and I think it was right after the first of the year, but in December, when I brought to the board that the city of Mountlake Terrace is looking at outsourcing and not using us to be their fire code official, in other words, with us doing that expertise. If I remember correctly, Commissioner Kenny, I think you started the conversation by saying, we need to make sure we are at the table. And so I took that, and I think the majority of the board had that feeling. And so staff went forward to ensure that we have a seat at the table. Right. And so what you have before you in this ILA, and Commissioner Chan, I know you were out of town for some of those conversations, I think the direction to me was very, very clear in my role, and my role has changed a couple of times since then. But when we first had the conversation, it was very clear that the board wanted to make sure we were at the table, and the risk we have. And once again, it's not necessarily the timing of when we say and approve. Staff has some reasons why we'd like to do it sooner than later in that. But we do run the risk of the city saying, okay, we're done. We're going someplace else and we'll outsource it and we'll take care of it and you're out. That's the risk we run. And so from a perspective of, are we in a specific time? Is there a time crunch? All those other pieces, I think the city of Mountlake Terrace has been very patient with us as we work through this, and I'll let you guys know we've been doing this hand in hand with legal from day one, and so and quite frankly, we've had lots and lots and lots of round-arounds because there's been some education on staff's behalf as a result of this, and but we're at a place where the city of Linwood budget's coming around the corner, and if we're doing something different, Linwood's going to do something different to the next round. So the risk we run by letting this delay is cities saying we're out and we're going to go do it ourselves. And I think most of our cities want our expertise doing the work, right? But once again, cost is an issue, and everybody knows that. And we don't need to talk about that piece because I think everybody understands what that means. And so what you have before you is, in my opinion, assuring that we stay in the position of being the FIDO code official in the cities that have annexed into the RFA. And so, you know, I hear what Commissioner Rowland's saying, and to be honest with you, up until that time at the meeting in December, I was there. And that's the philosophy that the RFA had, understanding under contract and how our first contracts with our cities that annex into the RFA evolved, right? As a result of that, as we learn more, realizing that we are now statutorily responsible for the fire investigative side of the house. You know, that's probably $1 million of our cost is the fire investigative side of our current fire marshal's office. It leaves about 1.4, and I don't know if I'm rounding numbers at the end of the day. You know, we'll get some fee recovery, and the rest of it is us. And so I guess I just want to make sure that you know, as we started down this path, staff was in the conversations we had. I think at least the message to me was very clear from the board. Make sure we stay at the table, and that's what this is to do is stay at the table. And we did talk about, Commissioner Rowland, so you know, we spent lots of time talking about ensuring that we're doing the right thing based on the conversation you had with Rich, and we ran that to ground, and quite frankly, 98% of the language in this document was written by Rich Davis. So I'm very confident where legal's at with it. I know where staff's at with it. I think as a fire chief, I think I said this before, it's beyond my comprehension that the fire chief in his agency of our size that represents 300,000 people doesn't have the authority to look at pre-fire plans and ensure that the fire code is up to speed. It's weird to me. I get how it happened. And so I guess I'll stop there. I just wanted to make sure that as we drove down this path, I think us and the board, or the majority of the board, were walking lockstep at the end of the day, or at least in the direction I was given. And I think in the briefs we had, and where we were going at that. Now, that doesn't mean the board can't change their mind and direct staff to go do something different. And staff will do that. But Commissioner Chan, to answer your question, how we got to this place in time, from my seat, that's how we got here.
Yeah, I got it. I'm just I'm thinking risk and reward. I think I got my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any last questions or comments? If not, then sorry, Commissioner Rowland.
I would just put forward a motion that we postpone this to our next meeting so that we can get an official report from legal, number one, and number two, I still don't have any estimates as to what these fees are going to be. We've asked for them multiple times and they haven't been, we don't have even a simple dollar amount. So I'd ask the board to, you know, allow legal to review this in context with the Edmonds letter and make sure that we're doing the right thing here.
So there's a motion from Commissioner Rowland to postpone the issue. Is there a second? Is there a second? The motion dies for lack of a second. I make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreement between South County Fire and the City of Mount Lake Terrace for fire code official services. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved to second by Commissioner Wittes. It's moved to seconded to adopt the ILA. Is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes on a 6-1 vote with Commissioner Rowland voting no. Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of staff.
Okay, next then, that takes us out of unfinished business, which was, we don't have any new business. Next is committee updates, starting with Capital Facilities Plan Committee, Commissioner Lawrence.
No, nothing to say.
Excellent. Then we have Finance and Human Resources with Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we had the meeting on June 12th. Unfortunately, we did not have the wisdom from Commissioner Lawrence in there, but we still go on with it. We have the one items we have done is ambulance transport rate comparison from Chris Stefano Bothwell, and we haven't updated this for a long time. I think it's a good time that we look at the references of all the other, and that we choose the medium rate. It's then also we also want to make sure that is annually that the administration can just update it without come to the board approval as long as we have some kind of rate. So we are Chris and I kind of agree with that. And then we also have the situations of the HR policy by David is about the talk about the some of the staff that go on speaking on behalf of speaking in conferences and that type of thing, and they eventually get a what was in the missile? Oh, okay, they get some kind of compensations. And there's an RCW saying that, but municipal officer, I assume fire chief and that type of thing, will not get it, but other people will get it. So I think we approve that. Chris, did I miss anything?
I think yeah, I think you covered it. And everything that we talked about is just basically the committee saying, yeah, we should bring it to the board.
Right. And then I will work with CFO Bothwell to the next meeting agenda. Any other questions from anyone?
Any questions, Finance Committee? No?
Okay.
Next up is Intergovernmental Committee with Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. But yeah, no, nothing, something like that. Haven't met. We're meeting July 1st. Next meeting.
Very good. And finally, Snow 911 with Commissioner Fernand.
Yes, thank you. We meet this Thursday. There's no extraordinary items on the agenda, some approvals for some of the facilities and so forth, and possibly the ILA will be discussed as far as what we signed here and move forward. We'll update you next on our next meeting.
Very good. Thank you. That takes us forward then in the agenda. Item 12, Commissioner comments. Are there any Commissioner comments? Commissioner comments. Commissioner Chan? Yes.
Well, it is comments. I know because I guess I'm on the news. The Boeing CFO is going to go in front of Congress, and of course, before meeting, there was a lot of whistleblower, and basically the cultures of the Boeing has changed from building good plane versus they now go into the what they call a shareholder value and look at the bottom line. So what Boeing has on May, they only get order of 5 plane versus before like 60. So that's a lesson that we need to learn is that I'm just saying that I definitely, we have under our current fire chief, we don't have to worry about all that because any grievances, the union would do it. But I know in the past, we have situation that one particular fire chief was not, we didn't get anything until he left. Then everybody go and cheer and celebrate. So I want to make sure we have the balance in here, some kind of grievances. I think work with HR, able to somehow at some of the, issues. I know I completely understand the chain of commands and all that stuff, but I think as a commissioner, we need to know some of this stuff. So I would able to, I don't know what the balance is. So able to a venue, a channel that anybody have any, problem or changes can let us know. That's it.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? If not, then we have an executive session for review of the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4231-10-1G. Let's see, why don't we take about a 6-minute recess on our way back to executive session? We'll start it at, we'll do 15 minutes from 9:40 to 9:55. We do not anticipate taking action at the close of that. And Chief, we will not need your staff in the executive session, and we will be recessed to executive session.
Yeah, and just for the board to know, tomorrow's a holiday for staff, so the building will be closed.
Very good. Thank you.
South County Fire regular meeting has called back to order at 9:55 p.m. and without objection, the regular meeting has been adjourned at 9:55 p.m.